some flange sealant. I'm not trying to make this a how-to video. Bollocks. Here we are then, it's the next day and I think I am ready to assemble this engine. So I've never done this before, I'm just going to have a go. I've got my front iron sitting on the stand, rear iron, middle iron, front housing, rear housing, front rotor, rear rotor, and then I've got Apex seals, new Apex seals, solid dowel pins, 10mm stud kit, got the ARP nuts to go on there, O-rings. So yeah, got my 2-stroke oil, my fake Vaseline and some assembly lube. So I'm going to crack on, have a little go at this. Now I expect this is going to be one of the most longest, most boring engine build videos ever. But I don't want to screw this up, so I'm going to just take my time and see how we get on. Just put my water seals in. I've got the join up there where there's no water gallery. I've got my little O-ring in there, and then I've got my sealant on there. Being as this one is a full bridge, you have to make sure that the notch, obviously this is the front one and there's a rear one, and you've got to make sure that these notches, so the long notches for the secondary and the short notches for the primary. Just check that they are threaded both ends, because I need to pull these out again. That's on there. Check I've got everything right. That went down smoothly. Front rotor. Must admit, I'm very, very excited about this, as you can probably tell. I just think this is so sexy. This is just sweet. I've wanted to do this for so long. Make sure they're not going to screw anything up. Perfect. You just have to remember which way up these go, because the assist piece goes, the assist piece, which is the glued on bit, goes up towards the primary. Now we've got to get your spring. Funny, I've watched this be done by hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but by loads of people online. And it looks so easy and so fast, and yet when you come to do it yourself, it is extremely daunting and very slow. Ah, there we go. One down. I expect what I'll probably do is edit this, because this is really boring. Ta-da! Yeah, boy! me feel like we're getting somewhere. So a few things that I forgot as we were going along. I forgot that I needed to lubricate the stationary gear with my assembly lube, so I've just been in and done that. And then I've put some 2-stroke oil in there just to lubricate everything else as well. And then of course I forgot that the next step is to put the eccentric shaft in, which was still attached to my flywheel and all the other stuff because it has all been balanced. So I've got that out now. I'm just going to, obviously I'll slip this in a minute. I don't know what, if anyone's interested, but this says AAYY, and then over here it says 59RB. So I've absolutely no idea what any of that means, but maybe someone could let me know if it's interesting or not. I don't know. Little bit of assembly lube on the bearing there. Really sticky, horrible stuff. And then we poke this down in here. There we go. Next step. So there, don't know if you can see, that's the join in the OEM Mazda seals, and I'm going to put this just near the dowel pin. This one's the outer, and these white bits go to the outside and the inside, and the black bit faces up and down. That's that one in. Apparently this is the moment when most people screw up, because you gotta get this to go on there and meet up with all of this without pinching any of them whilst lifting that up and manoeuvring it round. Easy. So one of my housings has got this recess. So this housing, the front housing, has got this recess cut in here, and the other one doesn't. I expect because one's a newer type and one's an older type. I've had this engine rebuilt by 2 other people who will remain nameless in the past. So I expect it's been changed. Just double, triple rechecking all of that stuff. That's that gone down. I don't know if I mentioned, but all of these surfaces have been, the ions have been resurfaced, and he says they take off just enough to bring any marks back into spec, so they try and leave on as much material as possible. Just take off what's necessary. Mine were quite badly marked, scored. But obviously now, like new. There is still a very small mark on the rear, but Colin said when they were doing it that there's no point taking it right back just so it looks nice, because it's all about performing well. So they take them just enough off to bring it nicely back to spec, and then that's done. Obviously, this being a full bridge, so we've got the bridge on the primary and the secondaries. When I put the apex seals in on this one, I've got to make sure I put them upside down so the assist piece goes towards the primary port. Lubing it up. It's funny that because you watch these videos online, on YouTube and stuff, of all these people doing it, you actually sort of know the sequence that things go together, and you pick up these little tips of how to put your seals in and all that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to make this a how-to video because I am a beginner. What I want to try and show is that I'm just someone having a go, and if you do have a go, you can do it. And even if you properly screw it up, I mean, you just take it apart and do it again, don't you? So that's the only way you learn properly, I think, is just to give it a go. And I have absolutely no doubt I'll have screwed something up. Now, do you put the rotor on, or do you put... Oh, no, right. So now what I've got to do is get these dowel pins out. Which is what this bolt here is for. Replace them with these. Which I have a feeling are going to be a really tight tolerance and are not going to want to go in. Yep. Let's try that. I think that just found its home, and that just come off centre. I think that one is home as well. Now it is. Now the rear housing. Which is over here. These housings have also been resurfaced, and there you can see the eyebrow cuts for the that's for the secondary, and then there's the one for the primary. And then the exhaust port in, and this one doesn't have the grooves cut. I did have a number on these. There's 5, this one says. And this one, 8. So there we are. Don't know what that means. Got some flange sealant. So you can seal your flange up. It's all looking good. Double check I've got my seal in place. Oh bollocks. Look at that. Let's use this. Seems to have gone well. What I'm going to do is add a little bit of the old 2-stroke, as a little bit of oil. I'm going to put some assembly lube on the eccentric shaft, just where the bearing goes. Like that. And the rear rotor all assembled. So hopefully this is the last time I'll be seeing this for a very long time. This is the rear rotor, all balanced, all lightened, clearanced, balanced, extra tip clearance in, blah blah blah. And it goes. Allegedly. She's in there. And now what I've got to remember is that the apex seals for this side go in the wrong way up. Because of the full bridge. Here's number 1. So here's the large piece of the full bridge on the secondary port, and then also you can just see there's a very slight mark just there that you can't feel with your finger, but this is where it's all been resurfaced. And like I said, you know, they can take this down more to get rid of that, but there's no point, because if it's in spec, it's in spec. Oh, that's good. I've already pressed the new rear main seal into here. There we go. She's on there. So this is the 10mm stud kit that I got from Column at Garage Reg. And these have to be torqued to 7 foot-pounds into the block, and then there's a torque sequence that goes on afterwards that's I believe it's 10 foot-pounds, and then you rotate the engine, and then it's 20 foot-pounds, rotate the engine, and then 34, I think. So what we'll be doing. they ran in their drag car for, I think it was 4 or 5 seasons without a rebuild, and that car was making about just under 1,000 horsepower. That was with the solid pins and a 10mm kit, 10mm stud kit. I didn't bother going with the, they do a kit that's does 1/2" studs in 5 locations, along with the other 10mm. I didn't bother going for that because it was more money, more machining, and he said it's just not worth it. This is plenty. I'm planning that this car's going to make, this engine will make somewhere like 600, 650 horsepower, which I think is doable. The clutch down there is the old clutch. It's an ACT thing, which was fine for a number of years. I've been kicking the hell out of that thing on drift days and on the street, and just done track day and days. That's handy, isn't it? And all that kind of stuff. So so yeah, that was good. But what I've got now is a extreme clutch. It's ceramic. It's not a twin plate because they're a bit on and off, and not great on the road. So I just went for the sprung one that came from Driftworks. Driftworks are really good. If you ever want to buy anything, phone them up or talk to them or whatever. They're always really, really helpful. Take time with you, and when you're an idiot like me, it really helps. So, just had a bit of a disaster actually. As you can see, the rear iron is back off again because I'd put the rear iron down and I would put my studs in and needed to torque these to the correct setting. So I was just having a little look, and look what happened. It was pinching a seal. So I'm gonna pop that back in like that. That's my worst nightmare. And then it's just popping up there as well, so I'm gonna sort of glue that down with a bit more Vaseline. My seals I've got pushed back in. Got them back in, so hopefully we're not going to have a little repeat. Drop a little bit of the old 2-stroke on there. Got my lube on my stationary gear. All looks a bit more compliant. These are the little washers. That bit that protrudes out goes into the sort of countersunk bit on the iron. Better do anyway, because that's why I'm doing it. Obviously here's the tops of the studs. I've got like a little Allen hole in that I've torqued down, and then got my nuts that are going on the top now. So I'm just going to put these on and then start my proper torque sequence. So you couldn't actually see where I'd numbered these before because it was a black Sharpie and it just kind of you put it on and you can see it, and then after a minute or two it sort of disappears. So there we are, that's the torque sequence. Wasn't using a torque wrench satisfying? If any of you have ever done this, you'll know exactly how nerve-wracking I feel it this is. Oh God, I've had this thing apart for so long, and it's been such a massive ball ache. It's had the problems with the water seals since I last had it rebuilt. As soon as I got it back, it was losing coolant, and the previous place just fobbed me off constantly, and basically the engine lived like that for ages, for years, and they kept fobbing me off and telling me that wasn't the problem, and until basically the warranty had run out on the engine, and then that was the end of it, wasn't it? So then that's kind of when I decided that I'd had enough of going to any of these places. Well, in fact, I did go somewhere else after that, and they were terrible as well, and cost me a load of money and grief. And so I then decided that that was it. I'm not going anywhere else anymore. I'm just going to do this myself, because basically I was paying thousands of pounds for someone to screw it up for me, and you figure out that actually you're quite capable of screwing it up yourself without paying someone loads of money to do it. So that's where we are now. So if I do screw it up, of course I will feel very disheartened, but you know, it's not the end of the world, is it? This is the third time that I've assembled, well, it's the first time I've assembled the engine, but it's the third rebuild it's had. Hopefully this time it's done properly, even though it's done by an idiot. And that is apparently done. Nice, right? Now the engine's together, the short block, I can start assembling the front stack and the oil pump and things like that. The only thing I am missing at the moment is a thermal pellet, because what I've got is the standard one. So that's going in the bin, and what you get instead is just like a solid piece. So I'm waiting for one of those to come. Until then, what we've got is, this is the first piece that goes on. Bit of lubrication around here, and whack that on. And then there should be a spacer, there it is. Spacer goes on, and then Torrington bearing. Here's my front counterweight that's been balanced as part of the balancing of the whole rotating assembly. And then I've got the drive for the oil pump. And then just the little front stack assembly. When you come to put this together, there's a little O-ring there. It needs to be changed. The new one's just here. So I'll change that. And then you whack a spring in there, followed by your little thermal pellet, followed by your front nut. I'm going to torque these up to 15 foot-pounds. Cool. They're all done. Then goes on the front counterweight. You have to just remember, like when you put this on, there's a keyway there, look, and that has to go on and meet up with everything else. Turn this round, correct spot, pop him in, there we go. For God's sake, get out. Chicken. Look at that, no respect from a chicken. What you'd normally see now is that people will get the oil pump with the drive gear here and the chain and everything already installed, and they sort of slide it all down together. But mine is all apart at the moment, and you can't really do up the nut on the front of the oil pump and then knock the bearing, knock the washer up together with it sort of outside. Well, that worked quite nicely. Just made a little teeny tiny mark so I could get this lined up, and that's now gone on there. All seems good. And you need a little washer. The washer has a little on it that goes into the hole where the keyway goes, followed by the nut, and then there is a torque setting for this, which I've completely forgotten. That worked. That goes in there, and apparently must not be forgotten, otherwise it leads to a whole world of pain. So, Teflon with the rubber O-ring inside of it, allegedly. So I'm told that is absolutely crucial, and that meets up with the front oil pressure regulator. Now we've got the front cover gasket is a Cosmo one. Apparently it's metal, and I was planning to just use some silicone sealant. Apparently that's a thing that a lot of people do, and I think that's what was done to this engine last time. Well, in fact, I know it was definitely what was done to this engine last time. After speaking to a couple of different people, they told me that definitely you do want to use a gasket, and the best one to use is the Cosmo one. So, who am I to argue? Gone with the Cosmo one. Cosmo front cover gasket. Bit posh, isn't it? Ooh, lovely. Then we just got the little gear is the last thing, the drive gear for the oil pump. But I'm just gonna, before I stick this on, I'm just gonna give it a bit of a clean, because I don't know if you can tell, but it's got some crap all over it. So I'm gonna clean that up and then stick it on. I put a new front main seal in here and a new rear main seal. New bearings, rotor bearings, and new bearings in the front and rear stationary gears. So hopefully this will slot on now with minimum fuss. Like a glove. So it's quite annoying really when you spend all this time and effort making something look as good as this, and but of course once it's in the car you can't see the engine block, it's all hidden. The front cover bolts go on at 15 foot-pounds. Cool. Of course, as soon as this is back together, I'll probably check the end plate and then find that it's well out of whack, which would be annoying, but of course these things happen. I do actually have a dial out gauge. In fact, I've got a couple of them, but I haven't got a little standoff for it. So yeah, so I might have to make something, or don't know, I don't really know. Here's my nice little piece that I repainted, made it all look black and shiny again. There is only one way that these pieces can go on, and it is not that way. It is that way. There we go, pulley on. Now unfortunately, I've got to wait for that thermal pellet to arrive. Got to put my nut on the back with the 54mm, torque that to spec as well. Put this in, torque that to spec. Flip it over, I'll put the oil pan on, which or sump as we call it, which I've resprayed. That looks really nice now. It was looking really, really bad. I've done the world's worst job of painting it because it was too cold outside and it kind of went bubbly, but looks a million times better than it did. My flywheel installed. Of course, it has been balanced, so it's had weight taken out to balance it with the whole rest of the rotating assembly. Now comes the task of trying to torque that little sucker down, which has got to go to like nearly, I think it's 300 foot-pound. God help you. How to torque a flywheel nut with a female standing on an engine stand and a massive great tube.